6 popes have praised Opus Dei as one of the most beautiful paths to holiness in the modern church. Meanwhile, a best-selling novel convinced millions that it's a dangerous, secretive cult that hides dark rituals and manipulation. One of these claims is true, the other is fiction, trust. And today, you're going to find out which is which. Welcome. In the next 10 minutes, you'll understand exactly what Opus Dei is, why it exists, and why it might be the most misunderstood institution in the entire Catholic Church. More importantly, you'll discover a spiritual truth that could transform the way you see your daily work, your ordinary routines, and your path to. Stay until the end, because what Saint Josemaría Escrivá understood in 1928 is something most Catholics have never been taught, and it changes everything. Here's the problem. If you've heard of Opus Dei at all, it's probably from one of 2 places. Either you watched the Da Vinci Code and saw monks with whips, secret rituals, and sinister conspiracies, or you heard whispers about some ultra-traditional group that controls its members and operates in the shadows. Neither of these is true, not even close. But the lies have spread so far that even faithful Catholics feel uncomfortable when they hear the name. Some feel suspicious. Others feel confused, and most have no idea what Opus Dei actually teaches or why it matters, and that confusion isn't an accident. When something threatens the way the world thinks, the world fights back, usually with distortion and ridicule. Opus Dei threatens the world because it says something radical, something the modern culture cannot accept. It says that you, right now, in your current job, in your current family situation, in your current state of life, can become a saint. Not despite your ordinary work, but through it. Not by escaping the world, but by transforming it from within. That message is dangerous, not to souls, but to the spirit of mediocrity that tells you holiness is for priests and nuns, not for accountants, nurses, teachers, and parents. If you've ever felt that being a saint is too far out of reach, that it's reserved for people who live in monasteries, this video is for you. Because the truth about Opus Dei might be the most liberating thing you've ever heard. To understand what Opus Dei really is, we need to go back to one moment, one day, one young priest, and one vision that would eventually change millions of lives. The date was October 2nd, 1928. The place was Madrid, Spain. A 26-year-old priest named Josemaría Escrivá was on a silent retreat praying in his room when something happened. He didn't see an apparition. He didn't hear an audible voice. But in the depths of his soul, he received a clarity so overwhelming that he would spend the rest of his life trying to live it out and share it with others. He saw Opus Dei, the work of God, a path of holiness open to every single baptized Christian, not through extraordinary penances or monastic vows, but through the sanctification of ordinary work. The phrase itself, Opus Dei, is Latin. It simply means the work of God. And that's exactly what it is, God's work in the middle of the world. Now here's what makes this so remarkable. When Father Josemaría received this vision in 1928, the idea of laypeople pursuing serious holiness through their daily jobs was almost unheard of. The common belief, even among many Catholics, was that if you wanted to be truly holy, you had to become a priest, a monk, or a nun. Ordinary Christians could be good enough, but sanctity, that was. Father Josemaría said no. He said that every baptized person is called to be a saint, and that the path to sanctity runs right through the office, the kitchen, the classroom, and the factory floor. Decades later, the Second Vatican Council would proclaim this exact teaching in the document Lumen Gentium, declaring that all the faithful are called to the fullness of Christian life and the perfection of charity. But Saint Josemaría had been living and preaching this truth for over 30 years before the council ever met. He wasn't inventing a new doctrine. He was recovering something ancient, the spirit of the first Christians, who didn't separate their faith from their work, who knew that every task done for the love of God becomes a prayer. So what does this look like in practice? The spirituality of Opus Dei rests on three interconnected pillars, and once you understand them, you'll see why this message is so powerful. The first pillar is the sanctification of work itself. This means doing your job well, with excellence, with attention to detail, not because your boss is watching, but because God is. When you write a report with care, when you teach a class with patience, when you clean a house with love, you're not just completing a task. You're offering something to God. The work of God isn't just the name of an institution. It's a description of what happens when ordinary human effort is united to divine grace. The second pillar is sanctification in your work. This means transforming your professional environment into a place where Christ is present. It's how you treat your coworkers. It's the honesty you bring to your business dealings. It's the way you refuse to gossip, cut corners, or compromise your integrity. You don't preach at people. You become a living witness, someone whose work ethic and character make others ask, "What's different about this person?" The third pillar is sanctification through your work. This is the deepest level. It means that the very act of working, when offered to God, becomes a means of union with Him. The lawyer who prepares a case with diligence can grow closer to God through that preparation. The mother who changes diapers in the middle of the night can offer that exhaustion as a prayer. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is secular. Everything, when done for love of God, becomes sacred. This is what Opus Dei teaches. This is what Saint Josemaría gave his life to spread. And this is what the world doesn't want you to know, because if you believe it, you'll stop seeing your job as a burden and start seeing it as a path to heaven. Now that you understand the spiritual heart of Opus Dei, let's talk about what it actually looks like as an institution within the Catholic Church, because this is where a lot of confusion begins. Opus Dei is what the Church calls a personal prelature. That term might sound complicated, but it's actually quite simple. A prelature is a structure of the Church headed by a prelate, which is just another word for a bishop or someone with similar authority. The word personal means that this prelature is defined not by geography like a diocese, but by people, specifically those who have freely chosen to be part of it wherever they live in the world. In fact, Opus Dei is currently the only personal prelature in the entire Catholic Church. It was established as such by Pope Saint John Paul II in 1982, and its headquarters are in Rome. The prelate of Opus Dei oversees the spiritual care and formation of its members across more than 70 countries. Think of it as a small branch of the Church, fully united to Rome, fully orthodox, but with a specific mission, helping ordinary people sanctify their ordinary lives. So who are the members of Opus Dei? This is important because the stereotypes are wildly inaccurate. The vast majority of Opus Dei members are lay people, regular men and women who live in their own homes, have normal jobs, raise families, and go about their daily lives like everyone else. They are teachers, doctors, janitors, engineers, stay-at-home mothers, and business owners. Some are called numeraries, who are celibate lay people that live in Opus Dei centers and dedicate more time to the apostolate. Others are supernumeraries, who are typically married and live with their families. There are also associates, aggregates, and cooperators, each with different levels of commitment, but all united by the same goal, becoming saints in the middle of the world. Yes, there are also priests within Opus Dei, but they represent only a small fraction of the total membership. The point is this: Opus Dei is not a monastery, it's not a secret society, it's not an elite club. It's a family of Catholics from every background and every walk of life who have embraced the call to holiness through their daily work. They attend the same parishes as you, they shop at the same stores, they sit next to you at Mass, and unless they told you, you would never know they were members. That's the whole point. The sanctification of ordinary life doesn't require a special uniform or a visible badge. It requires a heart on fire for God. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the accusations, the myths, and the outright lies that have surrounded Opus Dei for decades. If you're going to understand the truth, you need to see the falsehoods for what they are. The first accusation is that Opus Dei is a secretive cult. This is perhaps the most common myth, and it's completely false. Opus Dei has been formally approved by 6 different popes. Its founder, Josemaría Escrivá, was canonized a saint by Pope John Paul II in 2002 in front of hundreds of thousands of people in St. Peter's Square. The statutes of Opus Dei are publicly available. Its centers are open to visitors. Its activities are no more secret than those of any parish or Catholic organization. The reason people don't always know who is a member is not because of secrecy, but because of humility. Members of Opus Dei are taught to sanctify their lives quietly, without drawing attention to themselves. That's not a conspiracy. That's the gospel. Jesus himself said, "When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father in secret." The second accusation is that Opus Dei controls its members. Again, this is simply not true. Every person who joins Opus Dei does so freely, and they are free to leave at any time. There are no vows that bind them against their will. There is no manipulation, no coercion, no pressure. The formation they receive is rigorous, yes, because the spiritual life requires discipline, but it is always offered, never imposed. Members are encouraged to grow in virtue, to pray daily, to frequent the sacraments, and to live their faith seriously. If that sounds like control, then every serious Catholic parish in the world is guilty of the same thing. The third accusation is that Opus Dei is elitist, that it only cares about wealthy and powerful people. This myth probably comes from the fact that some Opus Dei members are indeed successful professionals. But here's what the critics never mention. Opus Dei runs schools in the poorest neighborhoods of Latin America, Africa, and Asia. It operates job training centers for the unemployed. It serves the homeless, the uneducated, and the marginalized. Saint Josemaría himself spent years caring for the sick and dying in the slums of Madrid. The spirituality of Opus Dei applies equally to the CEO and to the janitor who cleans the CEO's office. Both are called to holiness. Both can become saints. That's not elitism. That's the radical equality of the gospel. And finally, the most absurd accusation of all, that the Da Vinci Code revealed the truth about Opus Dei. Let me be very clear. The Da Vinci Code is a novel. It is fiction. It was written to entertain and to sell books, and it succeeded spectacularly at both. But it has about as much factual accuracy as a fairy tale. There are no albino monk assassins in Opus Dei. In fact, there are no monks at all, because Opus Dei is a lay organization. The rituals described in the book do not exist. The conspiracy theories are invented. The author himself admitted that he took creative liberties with history and with the Church. To form your opinion of Opus Dei based on that book is like forming your opinion of the United States based on a Hollywood action movie. It might be entertaining, but it's not reality. The reality is that Opus Dei is a faithful, orthodox, church-approved institution that has helped millions of people grow closer to God. Pope Benedict XVI called it a great force of renewal in the Church. Pope Francis has praised its commitment to the laity. If Opus Dei were what its critics claim, it would have been condemned long ago. Instead, it has been embraced, promoted, and blessed by the highest authorities in the Catholic Church. Let me tell you about a woman named Guadalupe Ortiz de Landazuri. She was born in Spain in 1916, and she became one of the first women to join Opus Dei. Guadalupe was a chemist, a scientist, a teacher. She earned her doctorate at a time when very few women pursued advanced degrees. She spent years doing apostolic work in Mexico, helping young women discover their vocation to holiness. And throughout her entire life, she lived the spirituality of Opus Dei with extraordinary fidelity. She sanctified her work in the laboratory. She sanctified her teaching in the classroom. She sanctified her suffering when illness overtook her in her final years. In 2019, Pope Francis beatified her, declaring her Blessed Guadalupe Ortiz de Landazuri. She is now one step away from being declared a saint. And here's what's remarkable about her story. She never wore a habit. She never lived in a convent. She never did anything that the world would call extraordinary. She simply loved God in the ordinary, and that ordinary love transformed her into a saint. So what does this mean for you? How can you live this spirituality starting today? Let me give you 3 simple steps. First, tomorrow morning, before you begin your work, offer it to God. It doesn't have to be a long prayer, just a simple intention. Lord, I offer you this day. Everything I do for your glory. That small act transforms the entire meaning of your labor. Second, do your work with excellence. Not for praise, not for promotion, but because Christ deserves your best. Saint Josemaría used to say, "Don't tell me that person is a good Christian. Tell me first if he is a good worker." Your competence, your diligence, your integrity, these are not separate from your faith. They are expressions of it. Third, seek serious spiritual formation. Read the writings of Saint Josemaría, especially his book called The Way. Find a good confessor. Go to Mass as often as you can. The path to holiness requires guidance, and Opus Dei offers that guidance to anyone who seeks it, member or not. Here is the beautiful truth that Opus Dei has proclaimed for nearly a century. You do not need to escape the world to find God. He is already waiting for you in your cubicle, in your kitchen, in your commute, in every ordinary moment of your ordinary day. The saints are not made only in monasteries. They are made in living rooms, in boardrooms, in hospitals, in classrooms, in every place where a human heart chooses to love God above all things. The work you do matters. The life you live matters. And the holiness you pursue step by step, day by day, will echo into eternity. You are not called to be a spectator of the faith. You are called to be a saint. And that calling begins right now, right where you are. Let me sum it up in one sentence. Opus Dei is God's reminder that holiness is not reserved for the few, but offered to everyone, and the path runs straight through your daily work. If this video helped you understand the truth, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel so we can continue learning and defending the faith together. May Saint Josemaría Escrivá intercede for you. May the Blessed Virgin Mary protect you, and may God bless your work, today and always. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.